BeNeLux. Today, we are going to discuss the early black metal from the Low Countries. Oh, hey. So today, we're going to be discussing Belgium, where Grasspop is held, the Netherlands, where the Dynamo is held, and
Let's go!
in Luxembourg. Now I found over 70 black metal bands from the 80s and 90s from this region of Northwest Europe from the 80s and 90s who released at least a demo or EP, anything in physical format during this period. One could argue that this area does have its own sound, its own black metal distinct sound, though not as well defined as, let's say, the Greek black metal scene or the Nordic black metal sound or even Eastern European black metal sound. The style that you most commonly find in this area is a combination of both the continental European as well as those from the Nordic region, and a little bit to the lesser extent from the British Isles. Now, on a continental level, they get a lot more influence from their Teutonic neighbors rather than France, despite being sandwiched directly between the two, which, as you can imagine, has caused massive problems for this region over the centuries. Being much smaller nations, they do gain a lot of cultural influence from their neighbors, much like the Baltic nations that I reviewed in an earlier video. Check that one out. But they do have their own distinct cultures, which they use to generate their own distinct sound oftentimes. Now, these are three monarchies: Belgium, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, where the Nether Dragon lives, by the way, are referred to collectively as the Low Countries. This region was first called this when it consisted of a bunch of fiefdoms. It was the area between the Kingdom of France and the Holy Roman Empire. As you can see, this area really has been a buffer between the major European powers. The Dutch were revolting during the 80 Years' War. They had so many wars in Europe. This led to much of the area which was controlled by Spain being given up. Austria later controlled much of the Spanish portion. But this also created the Dutch Republic, and therefore their colonial empire, which became vast. Belgium also had a colonial empire, sorta, briefly. It was a thing of absolute torturous nightmares. Okay, we all know Germany used this route to get to France a couple of times in order to avoid the Maginot Line. But, while the governments of these countries were in exile in London during World War II, they created the BeNeLux Economic Union, which is the forerunner to the EU, which of course is headed in Brussels, the capital of the very divided Belgium. The judicial portion of the EU is headed in Luxembourg. Now, Luxembourg lost a large portion of their population during World War II, but they have recovered massively and are one of the richest countries in Europe per capita. The Netherlands is the largest of these three and has long been known as a center of skilled artisans. Traditionally, Holland portion of the country, especially around Amsterdam, hosted many of this. They made many things, among them wooden shoes. Also located in Holland is Rotterdam, which is Europe's largest seaport. The Dutch have, over the past 700 years, reclaimed a massive amount of land from the sea. One day I think we'll get Dagorlad back. Alright, now we're on to the top 6. I'm going to start with the Dutch band Countess. My selection is the 1997 EP, though you may find this as an odd choice, as this was an abrupt stylistic change, and it only hosts 4 songs, one of which is a live recording of a previous song. Why would I choose this? It's just so damn catchy. Now, I do want to note, in the 2000s, they did reprise this style. 2002, I believe, Spawn of Steel. Check that one out as well. The sole Luxembourgish band on my list comes in at number 5. This is Black Candle. I believe they were the first band in the country to play in this style. I would suggest you check out their 1999 EP. To note, they still continue to this day, though they are located in Germany. At number 4, we have Enthroned from Belgium. I would say this captures the BeNeLux sound so well. It's got the continental Germanic style of black metal mixed with some of the melodic stuff coming out of the Nordic country, in particular, I would say Swedish style, though it creates their own style. In 1995, they released their demo Prophecies of Pagan Fire. This is the one I would absolutely start with if you're getting into Enthroned. There are some portions in this which are drawn on too long, but there are other portions which are just so fantastic. 10 out of 10, amazing. I did not hear this band when I was younger. For some reason, I avoided them well into adulthood, but I have since enjoyed them immensely. Check it out. Number 3, we have Cirith Gorgor. This is a Dutch band. Obviously, that's a Tolkien reference, but this is another prime example of that BeNeLux sound. There is a lot of emotional guitar work that's kind of meandering, but very enjoyable throughout this. This album, Onwards to the Spectral Defile from 1991, is the one I would hope you check out. As a quick aside, did you happen to notice the art in the previous two albums? The similarities? Well, they were both done by the same artist, Kris Verwimp. He has done so many album covers of, for whatever reason, some of my favorite releases. You know what? I'm going to go over real quick. I'm going to give you a list. Here's my top 6 Kris Verwimp album covers, based on the music that's contained inside. I'm not rating the art. That can be done in a different video. Maybe, probably not. Bing. 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 Alright, so we're at number 2. We're heading back to Belgium. We're going with Ancient Rites. Their Fatherland album from 1998 is so fantastic. It's kind of a transition album. It contains so many different elements that meld so well together. There's heavy, thrashier sections. There's also progressive Viking sections. This really works out well and helps to create that BeNeLux sound. This is what I'm talking about. This would be a good point of reference to start with. There is incredible musicianship here. Check it out. Number 1. Now this one is not typical of the BeNeLux sound whatsoever. But that's not what this list is about. It's about my favorite, the best. So I'm going with Heretic, the Dutch Heretic. This is a very punky, a black and roll, but it's also doomy at times. Think maybe Barathrum, bassy, very bassy, with fantastic vocals. Hella catchy, cool riffs throughout. This is for fans of first wave black metal, with the sense of humor squarely intact. This is what I'm talking about. Check it out. Honestly, I don't think any of those top 6 choices really would surprise anybody. And I'm sure y'all would rearrange them or even choose a different album here or there. But those 6 really stand heads above the rest. That is not to say there is not additional amazing bands to be found in these countries. Among those 70 plus that I found, I'm going to give you about, let's say 13, 14, I'm not sure. About 15 more, it looks like here. I took a couple notes here. I'm going to go over the A&B tier, black metal bands from the 80s and 90s from the BeNeLux region. Now I'm going to put a list on the screen in a moment for all the A&B tier Belgian black metal bands from the 80s and 90s. But I want to go over, I took a couple notes here. Berserk released an album called War Metal. Well, it's not really war metal. It's early 90s style. Nothing groundbreaking. Very heavy. It's 4 songs on this demo. It's the only release, unfortunately. But it's more akin to that Finnish sound from the same era. Maybe some of that Brazilian sound that was going on in the late 80s also. It's very dirty sounding. Kind of like Graveworm, the US one. Obviously. I'm honestly surprised nobody has re-released this one anywhere. This is a real find. Dagorlad, Incantations. Obviously, that's another Tolkien reference. But this whole album is just early horror film references, which I really like. There's intros and outros, and it's epic and atmospheric black metal, I would say. Reminds me of a better Balsa Goth. Who else is on here? Hellsaw. Now, they're not that great, but I want to mention them. This was some black noise way back in the 80s. I'm not going to give you a sample. You can seek that out on your own. It's not really that great. It's just kind of unique. There was a band called Zatur who released Count of Transylvania. They were a short-lived 90s band also. Only 1 demo. It was above average. Nothing spectacular. You know what? Just check out the list.
Lady and the skeleton man, famous dreams and
All right. And there's only one other band from Luxembourg I want to recommend. I found 4 total from that era in that place, but Donkeren. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name of the album. I'll put it on the screen here in a minute. It looks very French, like a Romance language, but I thought Luxembourgish was a Germanic language. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's a combination of the two, because where it is. English has a lot of both, maybe. I don't know. Sorry. This is like dark, ambient, funeral, doom black metal. Check it out. So, my top 6 obviously was heavy on Nederlander bands. And that's to be expected as per demographics and just the history of the nation as being artistic people. Now, most people in the metal realm are at least familiar with the death metal scene that's come out of the Netherlands, whether it's the earlier death doom stuff or the mid-90s death metal stuff like Sinister, Asphyx, and all that. I'm gonna give you some bonus lists real quick. I'm gonna put together my top 6 in both death doom and death metal from the Netherlands from this era also. While most of those were not a surprise to anybody, I don't think a lot of people are aware, previous to that death metal scene, there was a 90s thrash metal scene and an 80s speed metal scene, which are both to be reckoned with. In fact, outside of Germany, I would say the Netherlands had the highest quality thrash metal scene, including England also, which had some decent ones. But, you know, I'm going to give you a couple more top 6 lists. Check them out. Now, I'm not attempting to claim that there was much influence from these bands in the formation of the black metal scene in any way, shape, or form. Just pointing out that this country is rich with their music. Think Golden Earring or even Shocking Blue before. All right, so some notes here for the Dutch black metal from this era. Bestial Summoning. I'm sure a lot of you were asking me where this was. You would have put it in the top 6, I'm certain. This is legit old school black metal. It almost made it. I really enjoy it. I know you do. I know you already know who they are. But do you know who Bad Hobidian Seed is? I'm not pronouncing it right. Just look at the list. This is some super primitive black metal from '93, I think. Really terrible production, though, but if you can listen to this, it's something a bit unique for the time. There was also Heckle. This was a demo that was actually closer to making the top 6 for me than anything else here. This is depressive black metal before depressive black metal. This is Black Doom. I wish I would have remembered to put this band in my DSBM video. Check that one out also. Inverted Pentagram. Can't read my own handwriting here. Some really quality guitar work in this. Dreamy qualities almost. Meandering, odd song structures and whatnot. With clean vocals. Oh, Malfic Oath. I forgot to put that. That's another very important release from this era. They had an EP, The Land Where Evil Dwells, I believe it's called. Also, Satanic Death. Now, I mentioned that Black Noise project from Belgium earlier. This is a much more competent and musical type of Black Noise. So don't give up on that style if you checked out that Belgian one and we're just like, what the frick? Check this one out also. Try to explore some Black Noise. This is some other earlier stuff. It's just much more competent. Anyway, check out the list. Well, thank you very much for sticking to the end of yet another one of my videos. As it seems, I have about another year's worth if I keep going at this slow rate. I will eventually cover the entire world, and we are definitely narrowing down. I believe besides the United States, I just have some countries in Europe, particularly Northern and Western Europe, which are a bit heavier, and that's why it's taking a bit more time on those albums. Oh, and that African video I've teased, which has been written for months now. I just want to dig in a little bit more before I release it. I want to make sure I've scoured the continent for anything, and I'm going to offer some surprises in there. Well, thank you very much, and this will probably be posted after Christmas, but hopefully before the new year. Hopefully this is my last video of 2022. So, Happy New Year. Toodles.